Hey, this is Mark Spooner with Laptop Magazine, and today we wanted to bring you our video review of the iPad 2. It's thinner, lighter, and faster thanks to a new dual-core A5 processor. But has Apple done enough to stay ahead of the tablet competition? We're going to give you a quick look of the design, the performance, and features of this next-generation tablet. Okay, so first we wanted to give you a quick run-through of the design of the iPad 2. You know, when you look at it sort of just facing you, it's pretty similar because you have a 9.7-inch display, same resolution as before, 1024 by 768. But just turn it a little bit to the side and you'll see a world of difference between the iPad 2 and its predecessor. This device measures only 0.34 inches thin, which is a lot thinner than the iPad 2. If you stack them side by side or right on top of each other, you can see that there's a pretty big difference. And there's a difference in weight too. It's about 1.3 pounds for the iPad 2 versus 1.5 for the original. And it doesn't sound like much, but when you have them both in your hands, it really does make a lot of difference, especially if you're going to be reading ebooks or playing games or doing anything where you're holding both tablets for a long period of time in your hands. So it does make a big difference. So the other big difference that we have in terms of design, we have a front-facing camera. This is Vga, which you can use for FaceTime, but also for photo booth, and we're sure that other apps will be coming. On the back, you have another camera. This does 720p video, but the video quality wasn't great in our test. It was just okay. And still shots just don't get your hopes up because you're also limited to 720p, so that's one of the sacrifices maybe Apple had to make for thinness. You know, if you notice, all the corners sort of are rounded now, which is really nice. And so the iPad 2 feels better in your hands. A lot of the buttons and everything are on these like sloped positions, but we still found them easier to access, or easy in general. On the bottom, you still have the dock connector as you did before. We found it a little bit of a tight fit at first, but after the first day or so, we broke in our power adapter nicely. And because the iPad 2 is so thin, they had to move the speaker from the bottom of the original iPad to the back. And it was just as loud as the original. Not any better sound. You don't get stereo speakers like you do on the Zoom, but the sound is still nice. You also have the volume controls, and the switch over here can be controlled for volume, muting the volume, or for locking the orientation. And now you have a choice within the software, which a lot of people have been asking about. And that's a new feature of iOS 4.3. So overall, the design is very light and thin, and the display is still great despite the fact that you don't get a better resolution. And a lot of competitors are going to be playing catch-up to the iPad 2 when it comes to design. One of the other highlights of the iPad 2 is that it has a dual-core A5 chip on the inside, and what that means is that you're going to see faster performance, not only in benchmarks like we did in Geekbench, and also up to 9-time graphics performance, Apple says, in graphics. In our test, we saw maybe about a 5 times improvement in this benchmark in fill rate tests and that sort of thing. But a lot of people are wondering, well, what does that mean in terms of the real world? So we wanted to show you just side by side how much faster the iPad 2 can be. So if you look up something like photos, you can already tell that the iPad 2 is a little bit snappier. So if we load up, some of the same as yours, we'll just see how fast we can go through here. Still relatively fast, but it takes about a second, maybe about a half a second sometimes for images to load. On the iPad 2, it still takes a little bit of time, but we found that it's more responsive. A better test is to try to load a game that is resource intensive and that typically takes a little bit of time to load. So we'll try this Real Racing HD at the same time. You can already tell that the iPad 2 is loading the game, already has the audio going. So it was like at least a few seconds ahead. Okay, and the last thing we want to show you is web page load times, because thanks to iOS 4.3, in combination with the dual-core processor, you are getting better JavaScript performance, which can result in faster page load times. So let's just try CNN, which is sort of a tablet optimized site. We'll hit go at the same time. So you can see that the iPad 2 has already finished, and the original iPad was still going maybe like 4 seconds longer. So when you add up all of this, you are going to get a snappier response. So you're not seeing a world of difference yet with iPad 2, but at the same time, developers haven't gotten their hands on the hardware just yet, and we're going to see probably much better apps that are optimized for the dual-core architecture in the near future, especially games. You know, one of the things that we like about Apple is that they just don't throw out new hardware. They give you software and apps that actually take advantage of the new capabilities. So one example here we have is Photo Booth. So you fire this up, and it really leverages the dual-core power of this machine. So you can see that it's rendering in real time up to 9 different effects, which is pretty impressive for a tablet. And what you can do is you go into one of these, and you can sort of swirl your finger around to manipulate the image, which is a lot of fun, and it's just a good way of showing off the capability of this. And I know I'm freaking everyone out right now, but it's pretty fun. The other thing that we like is iMovie. So this camera on the back is here for a reason. So you can use it to create movies. And what you'll see here is that Apple with iMovie, they've designed this from the ground up for tablet usage. And we made this video literally less than a minute, including adding titles and things like that. So all you have to do is just select a clip, it drags it down here. You can add things like photos and audio, and you can also trim footage. You can add things like titles and different styles, and we'll show you one of the results right now. So once you're done with the footage, you can export it to YouTube and even CNN, but you can also output it to the Photos application right on the device. So all you have to do is go under Photos, back out, so you can see that we just add that subtitle, and you can also add transitions like fade in and fade out. And there's a subtle background noise, there's background noise, but there's also a subtle soundtrack here, and you can choose from theme music that Apple provides, or add your own music. And the 720p camcorder is pretty good, it's just that the still photos aren't that great. So you have to just weigh that trade-off. And the last Apple app that we wanted to show you has nothing to do with cameras, it's all about music, and it's Garageband. And it's a fun way to play with digital instruments and also sort of make your own songs. You can record and play everything from the piano to electric guitar. And you can see here that all the controls are sort of mirrored, designed based on the type of instrument that you're using. So if you want to back out to another instrument and go to keyboard, you can see that the look and feel of the instrument changes. So you can tell that Apple paid a lot of attention to detail. And there are a lot of music instrument apps on the App Store, but we have a suspicion that this will be the most popular one pretty quickly. One of the distinct advantages that the iPad and now the iPad 2 have is the fact that there's 65,000 applications available in the App Store that are optimized for tablets, not just overall. And there are a lot of great examples. I mean, the shopping experience itself is pretty straightforward and intuitive, and the store itself looks even more polished than what you have on Android. But if you even look at the selection right now on the Motorola Zoom, you ready? We're going to go through all of them right now. So there's maybe about 40 or so, maybe 100 total if you're not talking about apps that are featured tablet apps. And so Android is catching up, but it still has a long way to go. And what you can't get on Android right now, even though apps like CNN are available on both platforms, so we'll give you a couple of examples. So one is Flipboard, and it gives you sort of like a magazine-like feel to flip through the latest headlines from multiple sources, and you can obviously customize this, so that's a really nice polished app. And then you have high octane games like Infinity Blade, so gotten kind of good, I think. But if you just look at the amazing graphics, all right, I'm not that good. but this is in slow-mo right now. But it's just like amazing visuals, and there we go. A little bit of a damage to my enemy. So, and then obviously, and there's great games for kids too, and educational apps like Super Y, which will just help your kids learn to read and learn to use letters and that sort of thing. So overall, Apple has a huge advantage in terms of apps, and the iPad 2 just makes it easier to access them with a thinner and lighter design. It sounds like a small thing, but we really love the smart covers available for the iPad 2. They make a difference in terms of just not only protecting your device, but also just the enjoyment that you get out of it. And all you have to do is just pull this close, and it automatically attaches to your iPad 2. This is the polyurethane model, and it comes in multiple colors. It's available for $39. But if you want to step up to the luxury leather, you're talking about $69. And when you close the cover, you could see that the iPad automatically goes to sleep, and just like a refrigerator door, when you flip it open, it turns on. So that's a clever touch. But it gets even better, because when you fold it over, you can see that you can use this to type. It makes it easier for a comfortable typing position. And then if you fold it over once more, you can use your iPad 2 to easily look at photos. If you want to do a slideshow or something like that. Or if you're in the kitchen, you can actually just fire up Pandora and easily control the music controls without having to look down and just sort of keep it off to the side. So when you put it all together, smart covers, it's really a great accessory for the iPad 2. One thing a lot of people were asking from the original iPad is the ability to do HDMI output. And now Apple has added that ability with the digital AV adapter. And what you see here, it's a little bulky, but you have an HDMI output right here. And you also have a pass-through if you want to be able to charge your iPad at the same time. And what you can do with this is basically mirror whatever's on your iPad on your big screen TV. Unfortunately, when you're in a mode like this, you're just going to get sort of a window of what's on. So it's not going to blow up to full screen. But if you go into something like videos, and this is just like a downloaded episode of Fringe from iTunes, it goes up to 720p. The connection itself supports up to 1080p, but right now Apple only offers 720p content in its store. But as you can tell, the quality is quite good. And this feature also could come in handy if you wanted to do things like slideshows, or like a presentation for work. Of course, attaching your iPad to the TV with an HDMI dongle isn't the most elegant solution, so Apple has beefed up the Apple TV and AirPlay functionality within the iPad 2, which allows you to stream not only videos but photos, and pretty soon there's going to be websites and apps that are optimized or better optimized for the AirPlay experience. I'm going to show you a couple of quick examples. So this is the same episode of Fringe that we just had outputted via the HDMI adapter, and now it's going to go wirelessly to the Apple TV, which is connected to the Samsung set. So there was a little bit of a lag at the beginning, but the quality is quite good. And, so video isn't the only thing that you can do with AirPlay. So we'll back out of this, go to the main menu, start playing some music. We'll go to the Apple TV. And as you can see here in the bottom left-hand corner, it shows you the album art and who's playing, which is a pretty nifty feature. And what we can do on the iPad, even while we're playing music, is fire up a slideshow. So the Apple TV can handle 2 simultaneous connections from the iPad 2. So pretty impressive for something so thin. Okay, so one of the unique features of the iPad 2 is that it has a front-facing Vga camera, which you can use to make FaceTime calls, and you can use this to call the people on their iPhone, their Mac, or latest generation iPod Touch. So what we're going to do is call someone on their Mac right now. Sorry, the lighting's a little bad right here. But overall, I mean, the picture quality is a little bit grainy, and we're expecting a little bit better out of this device. But it is easy to set up.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
All right. Are we? Is our audio and video in sync?
No.
No.
It keeps cutting out.
It cuts out a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe you need a faster network than what we're on. But, you know, FaceTime is pretty good on this device, and the quality is not bad for something that's full screen. And you can move it around, move your video. You can go to landscape mode. So now we flipped over on their side, and you can move this to any part of the screen. So, pluses and minuses to FaceTime on the iPad 2. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
So to sum up, the iPad 2 is definitely the best tablet on the market right now. Not only is the thinnest and lightest in its size category, you also get a dual-core processor, dual cameras, and really smart accessories, like this aptly named Smart Case. And when you add in Apple's distinct advantage when it comes to the number and quality of apps, right now it really is no contest. We also were really impressed with the iPad 2's battery life. We saw in excess of 11 hours in our battery test, which is continuous surfing over a Wi-Fi connection. And we saw close to 9 hours with the 3G connection, which is Verizon, on this particular model. So what you're not getting is a 4G data connection. And we'd also like to see the mobile hotspot feature extend to the iPad. Right now it's only available for the iPhone. And so while, Motorola and Android and that crowd, they definitely have some advantages in terms of rethinking the tablet user interface. When you think about the whole package, which is design, software, accessories, the ecosystem of applications, and also just the easy way that it interfaces with not only your TV but devices like the Apple TV, right now the iPad 2 stands alone. This is Mark Spoonhour with Laptop Magazine.